We are in Duties of the Heart, chapter, page 273, and it's chapter 4. It's called The 10 Levels of Students of Torah. Excuse me. As the Torah consists of words and meanings, people are ranked according to their wisdom in Torah on 10 different levels. The first level is people who study the Chumash and the rest of the scriptures and are satisfied with their ability to read the text without understanding the meaning. Right? Because what happens is, let's understand that, if I just read the Chumash and I don't understand, I still get benefit from it. That's why when people read Tehillim, even if they don't understand it, they're still doing something. They still get credit.
He says, are satisfied they're able to read he's talking about you understand the words that you're reading.
No.
But not even the words?
You understand how to read.
To read Hebrew but not understand it.
Correct.
Oh.
They're satisfied with that. They just read it.
Wow.
Because again, the concept is I get reward just for saying the words. Unlike the oral tradition where I do not get reward for saying the words. I have to understand what I'm doing with the oral tradition. But when it comes to the written tradition, so then I can just read the words and fulfill the obligation.
That's
which
like
is
in prayer also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That is for a different thing, but
yeah.
Right. But it's basically the same thing.
Huh.
If I don't understand tefillah, but I'm saying because Chazal put it in front of me, so I'm saying those prayers, even if I don't understand the words, I still fulfill the mitzvah of saying grace after meals or whatever I'm doing. But obviously, it's better to understand what you're saying. But yeah, but that's the first level. They do not know the meaning of the words, nor are they acquainted with the usage of the language. Says it clearly. Their level is that of a donkey carrying books. He doesn't really think that highly of this group. Nonetheless, that they're doing something. A donkey carrying books is still carrying books. Okay, the second level, people who try to read correctly and follow the vowels and who concentrate most of their efforts on learning the methods of vocalization. They are masters of vocalization and the Masorah. So there's something there. Again, we're going in levels. The third, they're supposed to the first level, by the way. The first level is just reading it, is not trying to be so medaic, so exacting on if they're saying it right or wrong. And these people are, in other words, I have a choice. I can either read it with the correct accent, or I can put I could put the accent on the wrong syllable.
Or is he also saying that like you're reading, so when he we didn't have printing yet when he wrote this, so he's reading from a scroll, a handwritten scroll, and there's no vowels in it.
Or there could be vowels in there. Let's say you did put vowels in. They could have had vowels. The Masoretic text is probably there already. And so that's the point. You're reading it and you're caring about it. Like I said, there's a couple of things. One is I have to know the correct vowels. Yeah. I can say it ya'aseh, ye'aseh, and it's the same letters. I have to actually know what the meaning between the two words, one being active, one being passive. But, that's something else. People don't, some people just don't read the words properly. They're trying to keep up, so they speed through. And they end up mangling the language in order to just maintain the speed. But so when you read with them, I remember there was somebody I know was from their whole life, went to shul their whole life, and was the only student that day who came to Hebrew school. An Orthodox person. And so the teacher, not wanting to waste any time, because normally when you only have one kid out of the 5, you say go home or something, said to the student, okay, so let's go through the prayers. Read it. Just read it. And again, from person brought up with doing this, mangled something like the Aleinu or the Shemona Esrei, which we're saying every day. And the teacher, for the first time in that student's life, for the first time in that student's life, they realized that they were saying words wrong. because nobody ever listened.
Oh.
But now when you're one-on-one, and so when it comes to Aleinu or something else, and again, when we're hearing it, we hear one word, it's not what's really being said. About what I just say. So when you're trying to imitate that.
There was one time in San Antonio, so the rabbi was our Bachya there also.
Right.
And he was gone, and so a few people practiced. We split it up, and so one guy who had a certain one or two leads was reading, and he comes to a word. It starts with a vav, and it has the patach in it. So he says, well, whatever it was. And we had a visitor there who was knowledgeable. He says, ba.
Right.
He says, what's the reader says, what's the difference?
Right. Yeah. But that's the point. So if I'm reading, if I'm being careful about what's being written there, so I'm going to say va instead of v. I'm going to say ba when it is ba, or va when it's va. When it's a bait or vate. So that's what he's saying. They're the masters of vocalization and Masorah. The third level, people who, recognizing the insufficiency of the above-mentioned levels, try to understand the reasons behind the vocalization and the accentuation. In addition, they seek to acquire knowledge of language usage and grammar, nouns and verbs, modifying parts of the speech, prepositions, conjunctions, and adverbs, absolute and construct forms of the nouns and adjectives, the use of the future to express the past, the Vav conversive he's talking about, and of the infinitive to express the imperative, and all what we're learning, and the different kinds of verbs, complete, all three letters sounded, defective, one letter omitted, silent, one of the two letters not sounded, duplicate, verbs of the second and third letters the same, the apparent and hidden, closed and open syllables, the former ending in a consonant, the latter in a vowel and a vowel sound, and the like. Everything you're learning with me on Monday, you guys on Wednesday, this is what he's talking about. Right. That's the third level. They tried to figure that out. Now, it's not the best level, it's the third level. That's all we're at, okay? The fourth level, people, but it's a level. It's a level above just trying to decipher the language. Decipher to read. The fourth level, people who add to what has been mentioned above the explanation of the difficult words in Scripture and the plain sense of the text, and who, in addition, investigate the figurative and literal meanings of words in the Hebrew language, the homonyms, the synonyms, the derivative nouns derived from the other words, primary nouns, irregular nouns, and so with adjectives and verbs, and the like. So, again, you have right here. Thank you. Okay. So that gets you to a separate, and I guess you're raising your level a little more. By the way, this will go into what you like to do, Bill, when you're looking at the, what do you call it? The pictographs. That'll be something similar to what we're talking about. You get into a different level, okay? The fifth level, people who add to what has been mentioned above the knowledge of the meaning of the Scriptures, the understanding of its principles, the investigation of the metaphorical and literal meaning, such as the anthropomorphic expressions in the Torah or in the Scripture. They are the ones who interpret Hashem's book according to its plain sense, without reference to the traditional interpretation. Okay, so they want to just know what, they're looking at what does it mean, and so on and so forth, what we would call basically pshat, and they're not going any higher than that. By the way, people would even get this, it's pshat, the simple meaning of the text. That would also be a wonderful situation. Okay? It's but it's a level. Okay, the sixth level, people who rely upon the tradition of the early ones, namely the Mishnah, and attain knowledge of some of the Torah obligations, commandments, and laws without consulting the Talmud. So here they're just going to go to the Torah. This becomes a dangerous situation, which is why it's only the sixth level is still not the highest, because when you look at the Torah, it says, for instance, you shall do no work on the Shabbat. So if I don't know what work is, I may interpret it just by saying, I can't go to work. right? I don't know. It's only from the old tradition that I know that Ruach is defined as the 39 categories having to do with the building of the Mishkan. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that. So I may think I just can't go to work, but I could play golf, and I could do all the other wonderful things. I could watch TV. I could do all those things. Spend money, right? I'm not working, right? So that's how, again, without consulting the Talmud, or even when you see a Mishnah, since they're relying upon the Mishnah too, you can't rule based upon the Mishnah, because there's an argument in the Mishnah, it's arguments in the Gemara, it's arguments in Halacha for that matter. So again, the question is, how do you know how to rule? And how do you know what to do? So if I'm only at the 6th level, that's when the rabbi is going to be arguing all day long with the person when the person says, but it just says blank. Or the Mishnah says this. We don't rule like that. Okay, that's why, again, so at the highest level, it's number 6. But it's not a bad level either. It's above the donkey carrying the books. Let's face it, okay? So the 7th level, people who add to all that has been mentioned, the study of the Talmud. Now we're adding the study of the Talmud. They devote themselves to reciting its texts and reading its decisions without entering the questions that arise or resolving its difficulties. In other words, just the text. I'm not going into any of the... I know what the back and forth is, but I don't really know how to resolve the questions. I can parrot it back to you.
So that would be like, in other words, going through the Gemara, but without reading any additional commentary and really understanding that.
Well, you're going to know the Rashi. You'll know the Rashi. I don't think you'll know anything else, but you'll know the Rashi. You'll just want to get to knowing what it is. This is what the argument was, and so on and so forth. You're not really, again, you won't know what the real decision is, because sometimes even when the Gemara says we rule like this, we don't rule like that.
So he wrote, there was only Rashi, yeah?
Well, he didn't write anything. He's saying the Talmud, reciting the text.
He didn't have all the further and further and further explanation that we have today.
Who? He did.
He's saying you needed to really delve into this.
He right. So some of them he wouldn't have had, but he's living in I forget the year. He's Rashi isn't born yet. I don't think Rashi is born.
It's not even Rashi yet.
Rashi's not even born yet.
So he's saying in his.
If I remember correctly, Rashi wasn't born.
In his time, then you really need to.
You need to know.
Work with other scholars and delve into it.
Right. Correct. The 8th level, people who are not set. And by the way, it's hard for us to imagine a time without Rashi, a time without Tosfot, a time without the Rosh Ra, and it's really hard for us to imagine that. But if you're just looking at the text and you're trying to come up with something, it's an amazing thing. I give those people credit. But again, they also had the Gemaras were much smaller. If you think about that too. I mean, but we have a full volume work for, and I'm using ArtScroll as your thing, but Baba Batra is about this big in a normal book, in a Hebrew book. It's about this big. But the problem is because Rashi died, and the Rashbam took over on the interpretations, his grandson. His grandson, compared to the Rashi wrote 2-3 words. The Rashbam decided to write books. So the actual Gemara is very small on the page, which is why there's so many pages there. Otherwise, and now just take away all those commentaries, how much information, lawyer talk, do I really have? And by the way, if you want to know what that's like, just take up any lawyer's case files off his bookcase, any one of them, and try to read it and understand what's going on. You're not going to get it unless you know how to do lawyer speak. You're not going to get it for the most part. You just want to understand the cases, because it's all based upon reference to other cases. They don't have the primer.
No, you'd have to.
Sorry?
You'd have to have the attached citation.
Again, that's what I'm saying. You'd have to know how to use all of them. So that's the Gemara. The Gemara assumes a lot of knowledge. I mean, you learn with me. So it assumes a lot of knowledge. And it says sometimes, it's Rebbe's statement. Well, what did Rebbe say? Well, you don't know? I thought you knew that. What are you bothering me for? Every little boy knows that. Well, I don't. So now, again, that's all part of the Gemara. And Baruch Hashem for Rashi tells you. Or Rashi's telling you what the questions are. So again, without Rashi, you really are lost. At least today. Or today, if without Art Scroll, for these people, if everybody uses Art Scroll also goes into great depth as to what's going on. So, they're the new, for the new generation, they'd be the new Rashi. Lahavdil Elef Havdalot, I'm not going to equate them. But that would be what it is. Okay, so the 8th level is people who are not satisfied with the knowledge of the Torah. That satisfies those mentioned above, but exert themselves to understand the words of the Talmudic masters, to understand the questions and resolve the difficulties in order to gain through this fame and honor. They're doing it for the wrong reasons. They want to be able to go and give a nice lecture. They want to go onto YouTube and show how wonderful they are with all this stuff. So they know all of the stuff. They want to impress you with their knowledge. That's the 8th level. Now, what he says, and he berates them for this, is they ignore the duties of the heart and are not vigilant in regard to what is detrimental to right conduct. They spend their days in the study of bizarre, hypothetical matters which require new applications of previous rulings, the study of rare and complex legal decisions, and they recount the argument of the Talmudic masters on novel points of law. Meanwhile, they neglect the study what they have no right to ignore from among the matters which touch upon their own souls, matters which they are obligated to investigate, such as the truth of the prophet's signs, the tradition, and the conditions through which it is demonstrated. They neglect the duty imposed upon us by the Creator to bring proofs of Him with the intellect and to serve Him with a perfect heart, and many similar duties which have been grasped by way of the intellect, which I'll explain in this gate. So he says you can learn Gemara all day long, and you can study these bizarre cases, what we call pilpul today, when you can go into these extremely small cases. And again, you can do it for the fame and the honor. The problem is it's not proper. You have to, as Rav Bachya has been saying all the way through, it has to permeate your heart. This has to change you. If Torah doesn't change you, then it's not that you're wasting your time. You're still at the 8th level, by the way. So at the 8th level, let's understand that. It's not saying you wasted your time, but it's going to hurt you in the end. And by the way, this is also something that turns people off. When they go into the yeshiva, they don't understand why the Rebbe is so bothered by a particular thing. And the Rebbe goes on and on and on and on and on. And you're sitting there saying, what's his problem? It's a simple thing. Okay? The Rebbe is not doing it just for the fame and honor, as it were. He's trying to show you the intricacies of the Gemara. But this, again, when we get into all these nuances that people just get, lost in the forest amongst the trees, or however you want to put that, that's what kills a lot of people's learning. So you have to be very careful with when you want to get into that sort of thing. The 9th level, people exert themselves to know the duties of the heart and limbs and what is detrimental to right conduct, who understand the plain sense of the Holy Scriptures as well as their inner meaning, who verify the truth of the tradition based on Scripture and on reason, who systemize the laws and classify the practical duties as befitting the conditions of each time and the different practices of every place, after understanding the fundamental principles of the Torah, abiding by them, and exhorting others in their regard, who accord with the truth inwardly and outwardly and follow it wherever it may lead. They are the Talmudic masters and the Gaonim who continued their predecessors' ways. And imagine you still have something higher than that. The 10th level. People who have inherited from the prophets the wisdom of the Torah with all its interpretations and branches of its fundamental principles. They are the men of the great assembly and those Tanaim who received the traditions from them, namely the masters of the Mishnayot and the Braitot. As stated in the Masechet Avot, Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and transmitted it to Yeshua to the elders to the prophets transmitted to the men of the great assembly, the men of the great assembly to Shimon and Tzadok to Antigonus to Yossi ben Yossi ben Yoezer, and Yossi ben Yochanan of Yerushalayim. They transmit to Yeshua ben Parachia and Ittai of Arbel, and they transmit to Yehuda ben Tabai and to Shimon ben Shetach, and they transmitted it to Shammai and Avtalion, and from them to Shammai and Hillel, from them to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach and Rabbi Yosef HaKohen and Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel, and from them to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azar and to Rav Tafar and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and from them to Rav Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, our holy master, who gathered the contents of the Mishnah and arranged them in order, divided them into chapters, and compiled them in a work. It is the basis of that entire tradition on which we rely on our Torah.
So he's saying that really only the old masters of that put it together achieved the 10th level.
Correct.
And that would be pretty difficult for anybody beyond that time period.
Yes, apparently nobody's going to reach the 10th level anymore because we've lost a lot of that knowledge and again that tradition.
What about somebody like the Vilna Gaon? Because I read that he compares to some of the masters.
You mean the Gaonim? Yeah, I'm saying the Gaonim. So again, that was the 9th level.
That was the 9th level.
That's the 9th level.
Yeah.
The 10th level, again, you're not going to get there. It's the Great Assembly. Right. It's comparable to when I was in college. I remember learning Kohlberg. I think Kohlberg. Who knows psychology? Kohlberg, is it? Piaget's, after Piaget. I think it was Kohlberg. I'm not sure what his name is anymore. Piaget had 4 levels of development for your moral development. He had 4 levels and so everybody could reach that. Came to Lawrence Kohlberg. Lawrence, I remember, was his first name. Okay, you can look it up on some other thing. But Siri would probably know. But he said that there are 6 levels of moral development. He decided there's 2 more levels. And his 6th level, basically nobody could get to. I think he said that Martin Luther King Jr. was the closest he met. Which meant for his levels, that was, the cream of the crop.
It makes it meaningless, but go on.
Yeah, I'm not arguing it's meaningless. What I'm saying is that sometimes we set these levels up and we just say, that's the cream where we want you to be, but nobody's really going to get there. So his 10th level, they did get there at one time, but because we've been in Galut and so on and so forth, we've lost that. So the truth is, we can get to the 9th level. Thus, you have the Vilna Gaon, you have Rav Moshe Feinstein, of blessed memory. You have people today who are at that level, who, again, they know how to move within the halacha. They can feel the halacha. They are living Torahs. And that's what you want. You don't want somebody who can parrot the Torah. In other words, it's nice, but they don't know how to use it properly. And that's the biggest danger of when you're learning Torah. If I don't know how to use it properly, if I don't know how to use the methodologies of how to rule properly, so then I cannot give a proper ruling. And no matter what it is, it could be the simplest halachic question.
In other words, you may be able to read it and understand it and go along with the argument, but to actually, somebody comes up to you with an actual shiloh.
Right, which is why most pulpit rabbis, and most I think rabbis in the yeshiva world will say, I don't know. As I said, my Rebbe said, I live in the ivory tower. Sorry? Oh, I live in the ivory tower of academia, as it were. I mean, if I would update his language. And he didn't really want to rule practically unless he had to. And that he wasn't going to rule for us practically because we were in his class. So, he said, you have to learn that way. And then when it comes down to it, so then you have to have siyat d'shmaya, heavenly help to get the right ruling. And you have to make your charts and so on and so forth. But it's extremely hard to really, you have to be with somebody and watch how they rule. You have to get shimush on that. You have to get apprenticeship. Just like you have an apprenticeship to build a house, to fix a toilet, to do anything else. If I want to be a good mechanic, I can't just read a book and go online and watch YouTube and become a top mechanic. I have to go to a person who's going to get their hands dirty, crawl inside the engine. And we all know people who like that. They merge with the engine. That's what used to be called the backyard mechanics. But they were the best mechanics in the world because they could feel it, right? They knew what to do. Today, with the computers and everything else, they don't like it. But again, because they can't feel, but they still know what to do with it. They don't rely upon the instruments. The instruments are worthless to them. They have to hear it. They have to, I like some of the guys, they want to, when they check your oil, what do? You see old stuff, they go they lick, I was like, ugh, how would you lick that? You crazy? Or they smell it, or it could just be part of the act, I don't know. But it's, I think it's more part of the act. But they're trying to show you something. But again, that's something that I'm looking at. I looked at my oil. It's at the level it's supposed to be. Leave me alone. So it's a little dirty. It's not a little dirty. It's not crystal clean. What does it mean to me? But to them, it means something big. Now, so the same thing for when I want to rule in Jewish law. So I have to be with somebody who has a multitude of cases coming at them, so that I can see how they think. And that's, by the way, it goes back to what we were reading in the morning. When the rabbis were watching them go to the bathroom, or again, even to the last one, he would hit under the bed. And this is Torah, Rebbe. I have to learn it. He's right. I'm not saying for the last guy, but there is a point there that I need to see how you're acting. And I have to see how you're ruling, what's your mind set at. And that's when you become a gaon. You don't become a gaon from learning, just learning. I mean, I would never denigrate the learners of the world, but they don't know how to rule. And that's sometimes the biggest pain in the neck, because you go to people in Kollel for 30 years, say, what's the halacha? I don't know the halacha. What do you mean you know the halacha? You're learning it. My God, the halacha says you're supposed to go to halacha. We don't follow the halacha. Okay, great. We don't know that. Business law, all these things. It's pie in the sky. And that's why he's saying, that's not number 9, that's number 7 or 8. And 8 is when you're arrogant. The 8 is the arrogance, where you want to do it for the honor. So really they would get to the 7. 8. They would get to 8. 8 and a half, I guess. Okay? But I'm just saying that's what you have to be very, very careful of. So that's why when people ask me, do I rule on Jewish law? I say, why do you want to know? I'm not your Rebbe. If I become your Rebbe, it means I have to know who you are. And you have to know who I am. We have to have a relationship. You don't just go to any rabbi and ask, what can I do? Because otherwise he's going to give you the pat answer. Yes or no.
You're talking about something obviously beyond the normal, like, is this kosher or whatever?
And even there, by the way, somebody called me up and they asked me about a particular hashgacha, and I said to them, I'm not going to rule for you. Why should I rule for you? You're not, I don't know that much about the thing you're asking anyway. I can guarantee you, though, that most people would say it's no good. But again, I'm not going to rule for you. Maybe you need to do that. Maybe that's where you are. Maybe that's your level. I don't know what your level is. I don't eat, I used to call up for if it was non-glut kosher. So I used to call my connections. I'll leave the connections alone for a second. And I used to call my connections and say, is this hashgacha good? And their response was always the same. We don't deal with non-glut kosher, non-glut meat. We don't know what's good anymore. We only know glut. Glut is this. That's all we know. So would you eat it? We don't know. I mean, they couldn't come up harsher than that. We don't know. It may be good, it may not be good, but we don't eat the stuff. Okay? So that's part of the problem. If I'm no longer part of the industry, and I'm not an expert in that, and I don't know what the person's doing, I can't, in good conscience, say to you that is treif.
Go to the site and watch the...
No, you have to go to the Rav, and then the Rav's going to give you his mishagasim of why it's good. That's all. Yeah. I told you, there was one story I always loved, that when I was working in the industry, and I asked my father, because she was bringing home some meat that the world didn't like. Okay. Again, I'll leave names out of this. But so I said to him, Dad, why are you bringing this? And nobody seems to like this. Why don't you bring it? And I'm talking about like as in taste. The taste was good. But, hashgacha wasn't that great. So he said to me, because the rabbi of the store is allowing for it. So who am I to say no? He's a good rabbi. He's an Orthodox guy. I went to the rabbi and I said to him, Rabbi, why do you allow this meat to be sold in the store? It has a bad reputation. He said, I'm not giving hashgacha to it. I'm not saying it's good meat. It says right there who says it's good meat. Let the buyer beware. I said, no. Nobody thinks like that. It's in the store, your name is on the label. They assume that you are the one who's saying it's good.
He's approving the store, in other words.
He's approving the store, but he's not approving that particular item. That's what he was arguing. I said, that's not fair. Everybody's assuming that it's you. I said, okay, forget it. Would you eat this meat? He said, I'm a vegetarian. I said, great, you're a vegetarian. If you weren't a vegetarian, would you eat this meat? He said, no, I'd only eat glut. So you wouldn't eat this meat? You're allowing it to be sold, but you yourself, if you weren't a vegetarian, you wouldn't eat it because you only would eat glut? Yes. I said to my father, your rabbi just threw you under the bus. Please don't bring it home anymore. My father was disappointed in the rabbi. But, that's that you run into that. And so again, you have to be very careful with what you're doing, what's out there. That's what I'm saying. You have to really know the person who is asking the question. You have to know a lot to be a Rav on that level that Rav Moshe was, and the other people who are out there today. Again, without mentioning names, we all have our own people that we want to call. But you really have to know. And I'll even tell you one thing that, in the name of the person who's Rev Schechter. Rev Herschel Schechter, lecturing to all of the rabbis in the RCA convention many years ago, and I'm sure he hasn't changed, said, in order to rule on Jewish law, you have to know the entire Talmud, you have to know the entire spectrum of Jewish law, and if you don't know that, you have no right giving halacha. Period. And not many people are at that level. Okay. So, and not many people listen to that either. So let's be honest about that too. Most people just like to rule on Jewish law, and they think they can, and they get away with it, and so they cause a lot of people to sin because they don't bring in all of the different variables that they should have thought about. And when that's brought up to them, they say, I didn't think about that. You just cause somebody to do something, you didn't think about it. It's like having an operation without realizing what you're doing. What are you doing? Don't be a surgeon. Okay? So now we have the opinions of the people of the Torah, the opinions of the people of the Torah regarding belief and acceptance of the service of Hashem may be exalted also on 10 different levels. They guide, at the first level, people who are led by ignorance and by the overwhelming effect upon them of base desires to reject the Torah. They consider the Torah to be like the customs used to guide the other peoples and like the laws used to govern the fools. They form this opinion due to the overwhelming effect of base desire upon their minds and on account of the coarseness of their natures. They do not take upon themselves the yoke of the Torah, nor will they be bound by the restraints of reason, for they desire uncontrolled license. Of people of this sort, the wise men said, "Oh, a fool does not find pleasure in understanding, but only in bearing his heart." So you can see he doesn't approve of the first group. The second level, people who cannot deny the signs and miracles that were manifested by the prophets due to their general recognition, but who doubt the truth of the Torah. Their view of Torah is close to that of the previously mentioned group. Hashem wished to point out to his creatures a way by which their condition in this world would be improved. He therefore stirred the prophet to guide them with laws that they needed, and to provide them with signs and miracles so that his words would be heeded and his laws accepted. However, they do not believe in reward and punishment. These people, okay? I think it is fitting to briefly explain the refutations to their position by way of demonstrating its impossibility and by way of agreement for argument's sake. By way of impossibility. He doesn't like that there's no belief in reward and punishment, or that there's belief. The Creator is too high and exalted to alter the course of nature for the sake of one who lies about him and says things in his name which he did not say, even if by lying about God he directs them toward Hashem. Hence, if one believes that a sign involving a change in the course of nature was afforded to the prophet, one should accept his claim that Hashem communicated to him laws to give to the people. For the vision that appears to the prophet is no more wondrous or difficult than the alteration of the course of nature for his sake. Okay, he's saying don't accept that. That's not good. By way of agreement, if their position were to be demonstrated by clear proof as being correct, we would then be bound by logic to follow the prophet. For the Creator, may he be exalted, does not alter the course of nature, nor manifest wonders through one who does not know the good and the upright path. Whoever is chosen by the Creator, may he be exalted to guide us and to lead us on the good and upright path, with signs being manifested through him. It is proper that we rely on him for guidance and for leadership. We owe this to the king or a ruler, even if he is not endowed with wisdom, as it says, "My son, revere God and the king." This is certainly true then of one through whom a miracle has been manifested. Either way, they are obligated to accept the Torah. Of such the people, the wise men said, "You simple ones, learn shrewdness. You fools, instruct your hearts." The third level, people who are certain of the truth of the Torah, but think that it is a grace of God for the improvement and guidance of his creatures in this world alone, not for reward and punishment in the next world. What misleads them is that in the prophetical books, reward and punishment in this world are frequently mentioned, but not in the next world. Our master Sadia, of blessed memory, has elaborated on Parshas Imbechukotai on what clearly refutes the opinions of these people. In the books of the prophets, there are strong indications of rewards and punishments in the world to come. For example, it is written, "For God will bring to judgment every deed according to its hidden intention, whether good or evil." And that's from Koheles. In Malachi it says, "You will trample down the wicked, for they will be ashes under the soles of your feet on the day that I am preparing." And again in Malachi it says, "You will yet see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between one who served God and one who did not serve him." And then in Isaiah, "They will come out and look at the corpses of the people who sinned against me, for their worm will not die, and their fire will not be extinguished, and they will be an abhorrence to all flesh." And Tehillim it says, "How great is your good, that you have hidden away from those who fear you, and you do before God for those who take refuge in you." Zechariah, "I will let you walk among those who stand here." And again Isaiah, "No eye has seen, no God besides yours, what Hashem has prepared for those who wait for him." And then in Daniel it says, "Most of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to eternal life, others to reproach, to eternal abhorrence." And then finally Isaiah, "Your righteousness will go before you, the glory of God will gather you up." There are many other passages like these, too numerous to mention, So he's trying to prove once again that there is reward and punishment in the world to come, as well as on this planet, but mostly it's reserved for the world to come. The fourth level, people who are certain in their souls of the Torah and of the truth of reward and punishment in the world to come, but who incline to the love of the world and its desires. They use the act of Hashem's service as traps with which to catch worldly advantage. They accept the Torah outwardly, but not inwardly, with their tongues but not their hearts. Of such people it is said, with his mouth one speaks peace to his fellow, while inwardly he lays an ambush for him. With their mouth and their lips they honor me, while with their heart they keep far away from me. So it's something that we also have to keep aware of. That, again, we may believe in all, that's the fourth level, you believe in everything, but you're still using the service to, as you haven't internalized it, basically. You haven't internalized, is all from the external. And so you're using that, and that's part of the thing of, well, God, I put my phone on, I did this, I did that, you owe me. And I'm understanding that God doesn't owe us anything. That we're all here by the grace of God. Well, that's why you even have a statement, I don't know where it comes from, by the grace of God go I. What is that? It's not, probably not ours. I forget, but I'm not sure who says it, but it's probably the truest statement that there is. Because it's only through Hashem's kindness that we breathe. He doesn't owe us anything. No matter what we do, we can never pay Him back. And by the way, if you have a problem with that, you should think about your parents. No matter what we do for our parents, we can never pay them back. It's just an impossibility. Because they took care of us when we couldn't do anything. They brought us into the world, and so on and so forth. So, the fifth level, and our parents are to call the Chomer, or the most so God. Fifth level, people who are convinced on all the points we have mentioned in regard to the Torah and on the truth of reward and punishment in the world to come. But their souls incline them to the love of the world. They accept the Torah, but their aim in doing so is to gain reward from Hashem, as well as praise and honor from human beings in this world. This kind of hypocrisy, a form of concealed polytheism. He doesn't like that either. Okay. The sixth level, people who in their actions aim at reward from the created in this world alone because of their love for the world, because they prefer its delights, they fail to understand the reward hereafter and its bliss. So, by the way, from this fifth level to the sixth, it's really not changing that much. It's showing how connected we are to this world, though. Seventh level, people who are convinced of all that we have mentioned, but their motive in serving Hashem is the hope of reward in this world and the next. They do not know the ways of serving Hashem for His sake alone, to magnify, honor, and exalt Him only because this benefits Him. In reference to them, our masters of blessed memory have said, "Be not like servants who serve the master on condition of receiving a reward, but be like the servants who serve the master not on condition of receiving the reward, and let the fear of heaven be upon you." The eighth level, people who are certain in their souls of all that has been mentioned, but who assume the service of Hashem out of fear of punishment in this world and the next. That's that he's translating Yirat Hashem literally as the fear of, and the fear of the punishment. We have already explained how reprehensible these two views are. Okay? Doesn't like when people do it just because they're afraid of being punished. The ninth level, people who believe in the Torah and in reward for its observance and punishment for its non-observance in both worlds. Their intent is in serving Hashem is for His sake alone, and because this benefits Him. But they do not guard themselves against the things that are detrimental to the service. The damage creeps in, and they know not from where. As it says, dead flies can spoil and ferment the perfumer's ointment. A little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. One mistake can destroy much good. One of the pious once said to his disciples, "If you had no sins, I would fear for you on account of something more serious than sins." They asked him, "What is more serious than sins?" He answered, "Arrogance and haughtiness." As the scripture says, God detests every arrogant person. So, sin, what does sin do to us, by the way? That what's the positive of sin? It causes us to be humble, because it means anybody can be caught in the snare. So no matter how great we are, if we're caught, if we get angry, that's what happened to Moshe. He got angry. Okay, when he get angry, even at his level, he got angry that he was taken down. That's all David HaMelech, with what he did, what he does. It's all arrogance that gets him there. And again, that's when he does the sin, he now can be humble. The 10th level, people who are certain of the truth of the Torah and of all that are subject, and of all that they are subject to in the way of reward for its observance, the punishment for its non-observance in both worlds, who have awakened from their neglect and recognize in their hearts what they owe the Creator for His great favor and kindness toward them. They are not preoccupied with reward and punishment, rather they hasten to the service of Hashem for His sake alone, to magnify and exalt Him with longing and wholeheartedness, on account of their knowledge of Him and their grasp of His meaning. This is the highest of the levels among the people of the Torah. It is the level of the prophets and the pious ones who were completely devoted to Hashem, entered into a covenant with Him, conducted an exchange with Him, accepted His ruling, surrendered their lives, their children, their possessions to God, and were faithful to adhering to whatever they had accepted upon themselves. It was of them that the scripture says, "Gather to me my devoted ones, who entered into the covenant with me by sacrifice." This then is the form of the stimulus employed by the Torah, the degrees of those who study its wisdom, and the characteristics and the level of those who believe in it. It may be that among the degrees of understanding in Torah, there exist gradations other than we have described. We have mentioned only those in which the large majority of people can be found. Citing them is of clear use to one who searches for the straight path. When he finds among them a level that he is close to, he will know which level is above it, and will try to ascend to it. The difference between his own level and the highest of all levels will be made clear to him, and he will attempt to ascend to it level after level. That way will be easier for him. This way will be easier, okay? And we'll have to stop there. But you're seeing as different levels in both intelligence, both approaching God, and also, again, in the study. And what we should be striving to do is, again, using his 10 levels to figure out where we are, and then not to say, well, I can move down. I'm at level 5, let's go to level 4, but rather it should be the ascent going up. And understanding that while we may never reach 10, we may never reach 10, but 10 is where we should be. That's the brass ring you're going for. But it's going to take a long time. It will not take 5 minutes to get there. We have to keep that in mind. Okay. There will be no class next week.